Hey, hello. Let me just make sure I'm live, you guys. Give me just a minute. I hope you all have had a wonderful Monday. Thankfully, the day is almost over, depending on where you are. Let me take a look at something here. My screen is buffering, so I don't know whether or not I'm actually live. Let me try something else. My screen is buffering. Okay, we're good to go. So, I want to talk about something. This topic is a very heavy subject matter, so I want to give honor to Malia Davis, Aaliyah Cameron, and Naraya. Hold on, I have Naraya's last name wrong in the hashtag. Her last name is actually Naraya. Her name is Naraya Brown. So let me update that. Very quickly. I want to give honor to their memories, so I am going to make sure that I don't use any profanity during this particular live stream, okay, guys? So, if you are not familiar with these three young girls and why their stories have really captured the nation's heart, first we're going to, hey, Bet Winch. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Naraya Brown. And I'm going to post a link to a news article that talks about what's going on with her case. Hey, Kay Johnson, how are you doing? I'm glad you caught us. Live. Okay. So Naraya Brown was a 17-month-old toddler who was left in the care of a man that her mother was seeing. Apparently, the mom and the boyfriend were spending a night in a hotel, and the mom brought 17-month-old Naraya with her, left the baby girl in the room alone with the guy, I guess to run an errand or something. And while she was gone, this pervert sexually assaulted a 17-month-old child and injured her so much that she did not survive. Okay? Oh, then we have Malia Davis. This story has gotten quite a bit of national attention just because of some of the circumstances, but if you're not familiar with who she is a 4-year-old girl from Houston, Texas, I believe. And in August of last year, she was removed from the home she was staying in with her mom and her mom's fiance because she was being abused. She had some injuries that they cannot explain, and Malia ended up in the hospital with seizures. So Child Protective Services stepped in, they removed her and also a 2-year-old child from the home and placed the children with a relative. Well, in February of this year, the judge ordered that those 2 children be returned back to the home with their mom and the fiance. And 3 months later, in May, Malia goes missing. Now, apparently, the mom was out of town for some reason. And the fiance, his story was, well, when he was on his way to get the mom from the airport, he said that 3 men basically abducted the little girl. And the police were very suspicious of the story. Hey, Kayleen. The police were very suspicious of the story because when they reviewed local surveillance footage, they found his vehicle in a parking lot, and there was nothing on the security cameras that indicated that he had been abducted, and they didn't see Malia on the security footage. And so, come to find out, the fiance has admitted that, well, he is saying that an accident occurred and Malia died, and that he dumped her remains in Arkansas. Now, to me, it's obvious that he caused her death. He killed her and then dumped her body in another state. And so Texas authorities, I believe along with like the FBI and investigators in Arkansas, they searched a site, located some remains, and it has been confirmed that the remains are those of 4-year-old Malia. I believe that in this particular story, the mom knows more than what she's saying, especially because she has basically admitted that she believes that the fiance was abusing her daughter. I think she knew about it. She didn't care. And so, unfortunately, a 4-year-old girl has lost her life. And then the last girl I'm going to talk about is 3-year-old Aaliyah Cameron. A young lady, Miss Divine Brown, is the one who told me about this particular situation. And this is a girl who is from Las Vegas. Her mother's boyfriend was babysitting her, and he killed her. She died from multiple blunt force injuries, and the death has been ruled as homicide. So, you know, a lot of times when we have these conversations on social media about how we as Black women need to make better choices when it comes to dating and mating, and how we need to make better choices when it comes to who we decide to have children with and who we leave those children around, people get very offended. People don't take the conversation seriously. But more and more, we're hearing these stories of these very, very young Black girls, like little girls, who are dying because they are around predatory men, and those men are around them because their mothers ushered those men into their lives. You know, poor decisions have real life consequences. So I just want to read something that I found about predatory people, because I think a lot of times when we think of people that we need to be watchful of, you kind of think of these guys that are like incels. You know, they're obviously awkward and, you know, strange. You can tell they're not used to being around people. But the scary thing is, some of the most criminally minded people can be very charming. So one thing you have to be careful of is people who use props. You know, some people may have a great smile. They talk a good game. Maybe you encounter someone who showers you with gifts. And these characteristics can have, and I quote, an enormous sleight of hand value to distract you. So you're dating and you meet this person and he seems like a really, really nice guy and he's got all these great characteristics. You notice certain little things, but you overlook it. Because in your mind, you can't think that someone so charming would be someone that would hurt you or would hurt a child, right? Another thing to keep in mind is anyone who seems too perfect is. People hide their dark side until their target is deeply involved. So until you're so involved that you have too strong of a soul tie with the person to walk away. You got to pay very careful attention to people who flatter you a lot. They seem very kind, but it feels kind of forced. And they have these grandiose stories, but you notice little cracks in them. So you ever heard a person, and maybe they tell you about certain things that have happened in their lives, but you notice that every time they tell the story, certain details change or certain details are added or removed. That's stuff to be careful about. And most importantly, we have to know ourselves enough to know where we're vulnerable. Do you know what I mean? I personally don't recommend that people do a whole lot of dating if they're in a place where they're currently very insecure or very hurt, because predators will play on that. They'll play on your weaknesses. I remember one of my best friends told me this a few years ago. She was like, predatory men will play on your weaknesses. They'll play on it. They know how to find and use your triggers. So the more you realize what you tend to fall for, the more closely you can guard against it. Now, I know that a lot of the reasons that these stories get national attention is because, we know that the average woman that gets into a relationship and has a child, is not going to end up in this type of situation. But I still think that there's a lot to be learned from it, because a lot of people who are predatory, while they may not be criminally minded, they may still do things to usher chaos into your life. They may find other ways to manipulate you and to hurt you without going so far that they end up doing something that would land them in jail or prison. And we also have to think about, for me, okay, a lot of times I wonder if there are some parents who, maybe their child is the product of a dysfunctional situation, maybe a relationship or sexual situation that was very chaotic. And so they bring the child into the world, and whatever feelings they have about that other parent, they take it out on their children. And I think that can come in the form of neglect. I think that's why you have so many men that don't want to pay child support. They don't pursue custody or visitation because they're doing that to spite the mother. And I think the way that some mothers treat their children is them taking out whatever feelings they have on the father and just directing all of that at the child. Because to me, it is a form of neglect to just leave your children around people that you haven't vetted. To leave a child around someone, but you haven't looked them up to see if they have a violent past, to see whether or not they're on the sex offender registry. You're leaving a child around someone who has a volatile temper. You've noticed it, but you ignore that and leave your child there. Do you understand that animals, when they have a child, particularly mothers, mom animals, they will fight you to the death just for getting too close to their baby. But in a lot of these situations, it seems like, okay, this is a guy that mom just met. Why is he around her child? This is a man who, while he's no longer in the child's life, This is a man with a 17-month-old daughter, or a 3-month-old daughter, or a 3-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old daughter. Why is there nothing in you that decides to step in and get involved when you find out that your child is being abused? In 2 of these cases, with Malia and Aaliyah, they both had prior incidents where they had been abused. Like I told you guys with Malia, she was in the hospital August of last year with seizures because of the abuse that she dealt with. And I think with Aaliyah, she was abused in 2017 when she wouldn't have been more than like a year old. And in both of those cases, so far, there's no record that dad stepped in and tried to get custody. You know, you do have one of the fathers, Aaliyah's dad, who said he felt like when she was abused in 2017, the court should have issued a harsher punishment. And I'm like, well, yes, they should have. But did you try to get custody of your child? And see, in so many of these conversations, there's so much blame going around. You know, the legal system should have done this, and they should have. The mom should have been more mindful of who she had her children around. Absolutely. And dad should have stepped in and said, okay, if my kid is being abused, I'm going to do whatever I can to try to get custody of my kid. And I just think, you know, when I think of these situations where people have had children and they don't care about their own children, it's kind of like, these are dangerous people to be around. You carry this child, you know, I think an average pregnancy lasts something around, 36 to 40 weeks. You carried this child. You're in the house with this child every day, or you are this child's father. Hopefully you're seeing the child with some regularity, but you don't care enough to be mindful of who you have them around. Do I want you as a neighbor or a coworker or a friend? Because if you don't care about the fruit of your womb, then how can I expect you to care about anyone else around you? There are a lot of predatory people in Black communities. Of course, predatory people exist everywhere for the people who need to hear that, because they get offended if you don't specifically say not all, right? But if I don't say not all, I mean, logically, you know, obviously I can't know every single person in any situation. But I'm just saying that if you look at what's happening, there are a lot of predatory people with evil and predatory spirits, and they're hurting children. If they're not outright physically abusing their children, they're being so neglectful that they're leaving their children open to being abused by predators. You know, the certain crimes that you see play out in certain communities, all of that's a sign of the times and a sign of how dangerous it is to be around these people. And as divested Black women, you know, a lot of times people hear these conversations and they boil it down to, oh, you hate, you know, you hate this particular group, or you hate these men, or you hate these people. The primary focus of this message is being self first and not having a collective mindset. And that's important, because having a collective mindset will make you very naive, and it will leave you vulnerable to these people with a predatory nature. You see it in the way that a lot of our business interactions with each other play out, the way a lot of our friendships play out, the way a lot of our working relationships play out with each other. You know, these people who are predatory by nature, like I said, even though they may not be criminally minded, you know, that's the person who will be on the job with you that you think is cool with you, and you're having lunch together every day, and you tell her about your career plans, and that's the person who takes your idea and is in the job that you've been working 2 years to get. That happened to one of my mom's friends. This woman has her PhD. There was a certain position that she wanted, that she had been working for. She told another woman, another Black woman, her plans. And that woman straight up took all of her ideas and ended up in the position that that woman had been working so hard for. You know, that the person who did that is predatory. She just steals ideas instead of being criminally minded. I've seen that play out on other people's jobs, my own job. You know, you're working on a group project, or you're doing something related to project management, and next thing you know, someone is taking the credit for work that an entire team of people did. You're doing well on the job, you're getting too much attention and people feel uncomfortable. So if you're working around someone with a predatory spirit, that's the person that's going behind your back and lying to your coworkers and perhaps even your management team about you. You have a group of girlfriends, y'all go out all the time, you know each other's families. You know, sometimes when you're very, very close to people, their family members kind of become yours and vice versa. You know, so their mom is your auntie, and, you know, you love their whole family. But if there's a woman in that circle with a predatory spirit, that's the woman that tries to get with any man that you're interested in or any man that you're with simply because she wants to hurt you. I saw a story in this Facebook group. Like, this was crazy. This woman was married, and she had like a long time best friend. So she thought. And like, she ended up finding out that her husband had slept with this woman, like had had a long-term affair with this woman. So she divorced the man. And like a few years down the line, she found out, she never knew this about her former friend, but she found out that that woman had full-blown AIDS. And her ex-husband had contracted HIV from her. Thankfully, the woman who was writing into the group, according to what she said, she didn't have it. But you know you have an incurable STD, and you're sleeping with your friend's husband. What if that woman had contracted HIV from her husband, and he got it from being out here having unprotected sex with this other woman, not realizing what she had? You know, people, in my opinion, there are a lot of people, and they have incurable STDs, and they do the responsible thing. You know, they go to their appointments or take their medication, you know, the things they're supposed to do. But then you have people, go to Walter Lee Hampton's YouTube channel. He's doing a whole series on it. You have people out here who know they have stuff and they just willy-nilly are out here having sex with as many people as possible. People who do that are predatory because they're trying to inflict pain on other people. Instead of being honest about their condition and making sure that they protect themselves, and perhaps that they help educate anyone who does decide to have sex with them about how they can protect themselves, they're just out here willy-nilly. Just that's predatory. You're dating some guy that you've been with since you were 16 years old. You love him and you can't let him go because you're being foolish and hard-headed, right? He's cheating on you, stealing your money, giving it to other women. People who inflict pain on you simply because they can are predatory. Hey, hyper fanatic. Hey, Not I Said the Cat. Hey, Delphia. And it's almost like the only way to avoid that is to deal with people on an individual basis. Is to decide that you're not going to assume that you have a kinship with a person simply because of their skin color. Doing so can be introducing predators into your life and into the lives of people around you. Betwinch said these kind of situations make you question the integrity, intellect, and resolve of Black women. I mean, I do wonder, like, how are you so hard pressed, like, you so hard up to lay up with a man that you're taking a 17-month-old baby into a hotel and you're leaving the child alone with the man? We have to start assuming the worst about people. I cannot believe I'm about to quote this person, but I think it was Ronald Reagan who said, "Trust but verify." Yeah, you can kind of trust people, but you don't let your guard down. Not to the point where your 17-month-old child is alone in a hotel with a man. And in some of these stories that you hear about, the girls don't, maybe they don't end up being killed. But in some of these cases where young Black girls are being sexually molested, there are stories. And I also heard this happened to a middle school age, Black boy that was molested by one of his teachers too. But in some of these stories, some of these people who are out here molesting kids have STDs. There was a story that was going around about this young Black girl. No lie, she was not more than 4 or 5 years old. And that little girl ended up with like 2 or 3 STDs. Then there was a 14-year-old girl near the area that I'm from, and I don't know what was going on in her home, but for some reason, she had run away from home, and her neglectful parents didn't realize that she was gone for like a really, really long time. But what this girl did is she got on a city bus and she just stayed on the bus until, I guess, like the end of the bus line. And so the driver, instead of contacting the authorities and saying, there's an unaccompanied minor on the bus driver kicked her off the bus. And this man ended up seeing her, this man who had previously sexually assaulted and molested children. This man raped this 14-year-old girl, and they ended up finding out that he had herpes. They never did an update to say whether or not the girl contracted it. But imagine like that. Come on. You know, I just, yeah, not I said the cat. Some people are allowing their babies to be in dangerous situations, not caring about their children. Yeah, they're sacrificing their babies without a conscience. And I don't know what everyone's belief system is, but multiple different belief systems talk about how, when it comes to evil and demonic entities, they sacrifice and suck up the lives of children. So when you see all of these situations with these children just being left, some of these kids, it's almost like they don't have a chance at all because they have a father who's neglectful and maybe not in the picture, and they have a mom who's in the picture but does nothing to try to protect their child. Some of these kids, they literally don't have a chance. It's like, and for some of these parents, there's nothing in their brains that clicks to them that, okay, this person might be dangerous. I can't trust this person. Maybe I shouldn't trust anyone around my kids, because you never know. You always have to assume the worst, particularly when somebody is in your care. And your caution and your being watchful determines their fate. You have to assume the worst. Bet Winch said, you think what's holding Black women back is more than just race loyalty? There's an American problem with toxic positivity. Honesty about the true nature of people and what they have done is looked down upon. That's very true. That's very, very true. People get offended by conversations like this. People get very offended by conversations like this. And my thing is, I would rather you be offended than to keep seeing these stories about these children who are being abused sexually and physically, and then to keep hearing these stories about kids dying. You cannot assume the best about people. You don't want to be so cynical that you assume the worst to the point where you're completely closed off. But when you're responsible for your own safety and for other people's safety, come on. Yeah, hyperfanatic. That friend and that story from the Facebook group was horrible. Yeah, the woman was very, very fortunate. Very fortunate that she didn't catch it. Betwin said, sociopaths take advantage of the toxic positivity in society. They know everyone is obsessed with being perceived as nice instead of smart and genuine. That's very true. And, there are certain conversations that people have about the danger of being viewed as nice. Let me see if I can find this real quick. I think, because I saw something. Yes. Did y'all know that in Middle English, the word that nice derived from meant stupid, and the old French word came from the Latin word that meant ignorant? All right? I'm going to put the link to this. Yeah, it says, 500 years ago, when nice was first used in English, it meant foolish or stupid. So sometimes it's not a good thing to be viewed as too nice. When people think you're very, very nice, that means that they know that you're naive, you're gullible. Hey, Tiger Lily. Hey, Mika. Hey, Natasha. It means that they know that you're gullible and naive and they can take advantage of you. So you're absolutely right, Bet Winch. Sociopaths do take advantage of people that they think, are really, really nice. Like I said, you can have compassion. You can be a kind person to people who deserve your kindness. But it's not actually a good thing for people to view you as too nice. It means, to me, anyone who has ever told me that they think that I am really, really nice actually thought that I was naive and gullible and easily led. Okay? Delphia said that's why you don't trust anyone unless they prove themselves trustworthy. Trust and respect. Yes, trust and respect do have to be earned. Has to. So a lot of people, listen, y'all, there are a lot of people whose lives are cut short because they ignored warning signs and they were too gullible and naive to people who did nothing but harm them. Natasha said, being too nice is self-destructive. Yes. You hope that mindset dies off. Me too. Like I said, you don't have, being a person who's not nice doesn't mean you have to be mean and hateful, but you can be compassionate, you can be kind to those who are deserving, but don't exist in this world that don't exist in this world as a person that is just super, super nice, ignoring warning signs, and walking around here just being blind. Just being blind. Bet Winch said, nice is fake. Being authentic and understanding creates balance and compassion. Very true. Mika said, you're exhausted of mammies, fools, and the community that sacrifices Black women and girls and doesn't protect, support, and love. Absolutely. It's draining. And, people will be more offended by the fact that, in these spaces that we have these conversations than they are about the numerous Black girls that are being murdered or that are being sexually abused. They're not offended by all the Black women on the gun memorial. But having conversations where you explain to Black women that it is not beneficial to us to have a collective mindset, that it's not beneficial to us to act as other people's attack dogs, and that it is beneficial for us to, understand that you can't trust everyone and that people have to earn your trust and they have to show that they are deserving of your respect. When you tell other Black women, hey, you have the right to make the best choices for your personal life when it comes to any area, including dating and marriage, and that you do not owe your womb to the Black collective, people get more offended by those conversations than they do about all the Black women and girls that are in cemeteries. Nothing is more offensive to me than a 17-month-old baby being sexually assaulted and dying from her injuries. And the fact that these three stories, all of this happened like maybe in the last 2 or 3 weeks in May. And we know that for every story that gets national attention, there are even more stories with names of young Black girls and Black women, and we'll never hear those names. We'll never know about those stories on a national level. Delphia said it's because those parents want babies and showers. They don't want to take care of the kid. They just want attention. I believe that. Do you know how many broke people I have seen on social media with like these grandiose baby showers? And I'm like, cool, you need the gifts, to help out with the baby. But did you really need to pay thousands of dollars for a venue and food? You're doing all that, but you don't have anything in place to have a college fund for the child. You nor the father. You do that and you hope that at your child's graduation, there's going to be a billionaire to pay off their tuition because you sent them to a school that's nearly $50,000 a year and didn't think to have any type of way to help them pay for it. Yes, hyperfanatic. We need to be much more careful about who we associate with. Hey, Virgo sensation. We have to be more careful because the wrong association can usher so much chaos into your life, particularly like people that you know personally, people that can access you, the people you work with. You understand some of these people are so predatory on jobs. Like people can have it so that anytime a person's name comes up, like that person's name is completely ruined all over, in association with that person in your office that you're cool with and you go out to lunch with every day. If someone in your inner circle is talking crap about you, I'm not talking about former friends or former associates. I'm talking about people that you talk to every day, where everybody knows, they know your family, they know your kids, if you have them, they know the most intimate details of your life. If that's the person that's out here throwing dirt on your name, that can do a lot of damage to you socially. Or if you are hanging around people who have a bad reputation. You understand, being around the wrong people in your real life can cause other people not to want to deal with you simply because of who you associate with. They don't want to deal with you because you're cool with the office gossip. And you tell your 55-year-old busybody, messy coworker everything that you know, not realizing that she tells everything that people tell her. So they feel like, you know what, if I associate with her and she's cool, she's cool with motor mouth, no, because if I tell her anything, she's going to be like Tyrese was when Dr. Dre got the Beats deal with the headphones. Did y'all know that was supposed to be close to like a $1 billion deal, but it was supposed to be hush hush. It wasn't supposed to be publicized at the time that Tyrese got his behind on, I think, Instagram or Facebook Live and told the world about it. Dr. Dre almost completely lost that deal. And the word at the time was that to keep the deal, he had to agree Listen, he basically ended up taking a hit of a couple $100 million because he had told his business to messy, crying ass Tyrese. Okay? So yes, Black women, we got to be careful who we associate with. Because there are people who won't want to have business dealings with you because of situations like I just mentioned. They'll feel like, okay, this is supposed to be a top secret business deal, and your discretion, your keeping your mouth shut, can give us a competitive edge, right, over everyone else in this market. And they have to trust you enough not to tell anyone, but they know every woman in your circle can't keep anything to themselves. They'll look at you and say, you know what, Leah? I know you've been on this job for 27 years. I'm just making up a number. But, Leah, we know you've been on this job for 27 years, and we really, really like you. But you know what? We can't trust you not to tell our business in a way where it won't get out before it's supposed to. Stuff like that happens. And in certain social circles, people don't tell you why you're not getting that promotion, why you're not getting that business deal. They don't tell you why you don't get invited to the client meetings or the client luncheons. They'll speak to you every day. Oh, hey, good morning. How are you? How are the kids? How's mom and dad? Tell everyone I said hi. They'll have like real nice surface like conversations with you and never tell you that there are certain circles they can't let you into because of who you associate with. Natasha said, I feel like I am just now being my authentic self at 40. Yeah. Yeah, some of us have learned these things through trial and error. But at least we got the message. Some people go through life and don't learn a thing. Just, the young and dumb grow to be the old and dumb if they're not careful. So 40 is the new 30 these days. So you are still young. And like I said, the important thing is that you got the message and you're being your authentic self. I've seen really, really old people, not people that, you just get on here and call old just to be mean like I do sometimes, but like people that are literally like 70s and older. And it's like they never get the message. Tiger Lily said, those women honestly don't care about their children. They see them as an inconvenience and don't care about who they leave them with. That's the only explanation that makes sense to me. Because for the life of me, I cannot understand. I don't understand what's going on in your brain. Naraya Brown's mother. I don't understand what's going on in your brain to leave a 17-month-old baby in a hotel room with a man that is not her father, a man that you just started dating. I don't get it. I don't get it. Way I was taught, my older family members, you don't leave children around anyone until they're old enough to talk. That's how one of my best friends is with her kids. Nobody could watch her kids other than her mom and dad and her sister until the kids were old enough to talk. And even then, she doesn't leave them with most people. Virgo said the Black mothers are too busy uplifting the Black males, and that is very unfortunate. Uplifting the men at the expense of their own children, ignoring red flags and obvious warning signs at the expense of their own children. Tiger Lily said they are selfish and make decisions without any consideration for their children's safety. It is so sad. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, what do you think is going to happen to a child that's left alone in a hotel room with a man? Like, why? I'm telling you, when I see stories like this, I feel like we're all born to live. We come into this world because we're meant to be here. So we all have a purpose. And it's like with some of these mothers, I'm telling you, it's some type of spirit attachment. Okay? That's why you got to stay the heck away from these people, because you don't know what's attached to them. But with some of these people, it's like they're having children and they're setting their children up to die. It's like you're having children, but your children are born to die. Because it's just like, the neglect gets to the point where you're just leaving them around people with no regard for the child's safety. Betwinch said, people do not raise their children to think critically. They raise children to follow rules. Yep, this is by design, not mistake. This is beyond race. That's very true. There are some articles out there that suggest that children who are taught to question things grow up to become more intelligent. So you ever see like some kids, they might be 2 or 3 years old, and they not question in a way where they're being inappropriate, right, and disrespectful to adults, but they might ask you, how do you make a cup, or where did this paper come from? Like, what's it made of? Like, when kids are asking questions like that, that's a young child that is learning how to think critically. They're learning to question things. They're learning to question how things are made, where they come from, Virgo said, family members are evil too. I was made the scapegoat for many years. I divested from my mother and brothers. She always coddled them. Yep, there are some evil family members. Very, very true. Betwinch said they want instant gratification and to maintain an illusion because true success does not seem possible to them. Yes, Black people take too many shortcuts. Very true. People want the rewards of success without actually having to do the work for it. Delphia said, you hate how amongst Black people you are called judgmental if you don't like certain troublemaking Black people. Yep. You can't, like I said before, you can't assume that you have a kinship with a person simply because of that person's skin color. People can have conversations about how other groups of people operate and how it's beneficial to them, but amongst those groups, they have a group mindset where they understand that having family, community, and an economic structure helps everyone succeed. That way of thinking is just not there with a lot of Black people. And so as a result, it's like it's not enough Black people who think that way to make a collective mindset beneficial. And one thing I can tell you too, in certain societies, when you're out here, if you commit certain types of crimes or you are irresponsible in certain ways, amongst those groups, they will completely disown you. If you know any traditional Korean families, watch how they treat the people in their families who do something to embarrass the family. You'll be completely disowned, completely ostracized. In the Black collective, we are told that it's wrong to do that. So that's why when you see these stories of, Black men committing crimes, instead of people being more concerned about the victims, like when these stories come up with girls being sexually abused and murdered, people hear stories like this and they'll say, well, in this other case, this guy got this charge. And it's like, so, okay, you're actually concerned about the fate of an adult who's molesting children? You actually want that person back out on the streets to be around your children? Do you see the neglect? Do you see the lack of concern for their very own children? And so it gets to this place where I don't think a lot of people understand. Other people are only going to care about you as much as you care about yourself. So since the Black collective has demonstrated that it largely does not care about the women and children who are Black, you don't think that's a reason why we experience certain things in society? Why a 12 or 13-year-old girl can be probably a little smart mouth at a movie theater and a fully grown man punches that girl in the face. And it's like, y'all do realize that when you're having these conversations on social media, we can hear you. That's what the rest of the world is saying. We can hear you. When you're talking, you can't assume that when you're, talking about how these people, they talk about how they feel like Black girls and Black women don't deserve respect. Other people hear you say that. They hear the way that Black people talk about Black children and feel like, oh, okay, this little Black girl is saying something to me that I don't like. Do you understand? That lady in Texas that got, I think it was Texas, where it was the parking dispute with that guy who hit her and pulled a gun out on her. All of these people, all of these Black people, supposedly pro-Black, were on social media saying, oh, well, that's what she gets for getting out of the car, including there were Black women saying that. Okay, we can look at that situation and say, you know what, she shouldn't have gotten out of her car. Because it's dangerous and you don't know how other people are going to act. And when you conduct yourself in this way where you're being confrontational, there are some people who are going to meet you with the same attitude that you meet them with. With that being said, that does not mean that she deserved to have a gun pulled out on her and to be punched a couple of times. And do you know that after several days of those conversations going on social media, the cops tried to charge her with a felony? Why? Because people hear these conversations and they know some of the people listening to these conversations would potentially be in the jury pool. So if they feel that the overall perception is that this woman is wrong, then okay, we can slap this woman with a felony charge. Thankfully, nothing came of that. She didn't go to trial or anything, and the charge was dropped and not pursued. But it's like, yo, people hear you when you're talking. And these conversations have real world consequences. Natasha said life is a continuous learning process. We also were not taught to be authentic and self-serving. Not at all. People make it seem like you are evil for doing what everyone else does. Most other people do what's in their best interest. Now, I'm not talking about doing things to hurt people, right? To harm people or anything like that. But I'm talking about most people are taught, okay, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this person because dealing with them is not going to benefit me in this way. I'm not going to go to this school because I would get more scholarship money if I went to this other school. You know, I'm on my job and I'm not going to maliciously withhold information from people because, you know, we do have to share information in the ways that is necessary to get work done. But it doesn't benefit me to have a career plan and to tell anyone else what that career plan is because that person might steal my idea. We're not taught that. Collective thinking, you know, creates this idea that anything that you have, including your thoughts, your ideas, and your talents, it creates this mindset that anything that you have belongs to everybody else. And that's one of the dangers of it. Hyperfanatic said you don't associate with busybodies and gossip spreaders. In real life, I don't. You know, when on my job, I don't. I'm not gonna lie, you know, I have to stomp the petty out of myself. And at times, I've been guilty in enjoying gossip simply because it's interesting. I've learned to get out of that by finding other things to do with my time. Having hobbies, going to the gym, reading, attending to the business that is beneficial to me. You know, when you do stuff that's productive, that takes up your time, you don't have time to gossip. But it took me a bit of time to learn that. Beth Lynch said, look up Grand Maya. That is serendipity at work because of the nature of Kyrie's. Dre did not win the way he wanted. And the news leaking out, yep, gave Michelle a chance to tell her story and stop his bag. I have no problem. Michelle A. I'm sorry. I have no problems with Michelle A. You know, at all. But you're absolutely right. If Dr. Dre had not told Tyrese his business, it wouldn't have started a certain series of events that were not beneficial to him. Can you believe that? Imagine someone telling you about a wonderful opportunity that they have, and your immediate thought is to get on live and tell the world. And they were all on the live stream. Like, it was obvious that I think they were like drinking or something like that. But I'm like, still, there was nothing in your mind that said, hey, it may not be a good idea to announce this to the world right now. Nope, not at all. Told it all. Cost your homeboy hundreds of millions of dollars. And like you said, gave Michelle A. the opportunity to tell her story, which she had the right to tell her story. Just saying. And people started remembering all this other stuff that Dr. Dre had done. Like, I didn't know that there was some situation where he like punched a lady in the face or something like that. All of that. Because you told your business to a guy who couldn't keep his mouth shut, who couldn't stay off live long enough for you to sign the deal. And I'm sure that because the competitors knew about the deal, they probably said, oh, hey, this is a good idea. Why don't we try to market something that's pretty similar? Just all around a bad idea. Natasha said, I don't think these women have any kind of support system, yet have multiple kids. Right. You know, back in the days when a lot of people were having a whole lot of kids, people, you know, when the marital rates were higher, it was kind of like, okay, you had your spouse and people still lived in the same communities with, you know, their grandma, you know, aunties, uncles. You had a whole network of people that you could rely on to possibly watch your kids, although even back then, this has always been predatory people. But you were more likely, like you said, to have a support system who loved you and by extension loved your kids. And so they would never do anything to harm them. You don't understand, back in the day, in some of those very rural communities, if you touched a kid, listen, no one would see you again. And everybody would just kind of understand why. Okay? And I'll just leave it at that. But now people actually hear about children being molested, and their first response is to say, well, this other guy had a lighter sentence. It's like, listen, we're not standing up for sexual offenders over here. We're just not. Now, you can have a conversation with the powers that be to see if they can make it so that those other people also get harshly punished, because you don't want any sexual offenders on the street. But you don't want that to be your message. And it's like black people all over social media sharing. Yeah, why are they going after R. Kelly when this guy only got a slap on the wrist? You should not want R. Kelly to get a slap on the wrist. You should be having conversations about trying to make sure, like I said, that those other people get the stiff sentences. I don't, you know how it is, y'all. Yeah, I'm sure most of us have just gotten to the point where we just stop trying to explain some of this stuff because it just doesn't make sense. But yeah, a lot of these women have no support system and have multiple children. And then you have people out here who are actually offended by Planned Parenthood. Listen, if you look up Planned Parenthood, only about 2 to 3% of the services they provide are abortion related. A lot of what they do is stuff like breast cancer screenings, giving out birth control. And then for some people who don't have access to other healthcare, I think that some Planned Parenthoods will actually act kind of as like a primary care provider in some situations, where you can at least go in and get like certain health screenings. But yet you're trying to close down the one thing that would help these women make better reproductive choices, that would help these women be connected to birth control and free condoms. Virgo, yep, can't keep their legs closed. Needs are more important than their kids. And I'm just like, y'all do realize that you can live your life and enjoy that part of life and do it in a way where you don't end up with a child or STD by simply protecting yourself. Natasha, Malia's mom has a 2-year-old with the ex-fiance. I don't know why she had another kid. No clue. And you got to think about it too. Malia is 4. The other child is 2. So she probably had those kids within around maybe a year and a half of each other. No clue why she had another child. And from what I've seen of her, it's not like she's, put it like this, she's old enough to have known to make better choices. And to me, it's like, why fight to get your child back if you know you're not going to leave that guy? Her children were being taken care of by relatives. The unselfish, it was 2 options she had here. Her first choice, which should have been in her nature to do it, it should have been in her nature to leave the guy cut off all ties with him, and get her own place, and then fight to get her children back. Or if she wasn't going to do that, she should have at least allowed her children to stay with the relatives where they were safe and being taken care of, and where they were being kept away from the man that she was too selfish and irresponsible to stay away from. But that is a good question, Natasha. Why bring another child into an abusive situation? Betwich said, Black people have a culture of pretentiousness proclaimed as being nice. Having no judgment is stupid. If you can judge a situation, you can judge a person. Maybe people would get less offended if we said assess, right? Because that's basically all it is when you're judging a person in a situation. You're just making an assessment. You're using your critical thinking and analytical skills to basically say, my kid's only 17 months old. If I can't find a babysitter, or if one of my aunties or my mom doesn't want to watch the baby this weekend, or if the dad's not available to watch the baby, then you know what? I don't need to go to the hotel this weekend. Sex is not more important than me making sure my child is safe. That's all it is to judge a situation. Virgo Sensation said, Natasha, and they choose these men for company and support. These men did end up killing the children. Yes. A culture of pretentiousness. That's a good way of saying it, Beth. Natasha, Biggie Smalls' first album was Born to Die. I'm telling you. You have a lot of people within the collective that we're talking about, okay, who have no purpose in life. They don't try to have a purpose. So they have children and don't teach them the importance of having a purpose. Literally. Some of these kids are screwed from the day that they're born because of who is around them. I'm telling y'all, man, like I'm not ever going to understand what makes you take a 17-month-old child to a hotel room because you want to get the what, and then to leave the child alone in the room with that man. I'm starting to think, and I said this on my other channel, but I'm starting to think that some of these stories we hear about where these kids are being sexually abused, I'm starting to think that the moms know what's going on and they don't care, and they're getting like paid. Because I saw this one, I think it was like a YouTube video that this lady had done where she said her mom was a drug addict and her mom had a boyfriend that was a drug dealer. And in exchange for free drugs, her mom looked the other way when the man was like abusing her and molesting her. Gotta be. I think some of these women know and they don't care. What is FATS? What's that acronym mean? Hyperfanatic. Yep. We do disrespect each other all the time. I'm telling you, a culture of predatory spirits, neglectful people. and people who are basically living to die. Yes. Bet Winch, black people will be suspicious of the education system, but not of convicted felons. Right. And obviously, even in saying that, you'll have people say, well, there are people who, they do their time and they come out and so on and so forth. Duh, we all know that. But if you know someone went to jail because they were a rapist, they're on the sex offender registry because they molested kids, stuff like that, crimes that show that a person is completely morally bankrupt with a black heart and a person is a soulless demon, like, why would you trust those people? I'm telling you, some of these women have to know that they're dealing with men who are on the sex offender registry. And it's like, why would you deal with him, period, and you have children? Like, I'm telling you, some of these women, they know what's up and they just don't care about their kids. Delphia, pro-blacks will excuse any negative interaction with white men and black women. Mm-hmm. They hate white people just as much as they hate us. Very true. Actually, sometimes I think they hate black women more. Because in all of those situations whether it was that little girl at the movie theater where the guy hit her, the parking interaction in Texas, and even remember like a few summers ago there was a pool party. Well, it wasn't a pool party. It sounded like these kids kind of crashed a community pool. And so the kids were asked to leave, and there's a group of kids walking away, and one of the girls mouths off at a police officer. She was not physically interacting with him, though. She hadn't hit him or anything. Hey, Lolita. She hadn't hit him or anything. And that guy body slammed that girl. And that security officer that body slammed that girl when she was like in the 8th grade or something like that. In all of those situations, the pro-blacks sided with the men because they actually hate black women more than they hate other groups of men. Ooh, that's a separate conversation by itself. Yeah, I think they hate us more than they hate other groups of men. Tiger Lily, dysfunction has gone on in the black community for so long that it has become normalized. Yep. When we call out this dysfunction, we are ridiculed. Very, very true. Hyperfanatic Michelle is one of Dr. Dre's ex-girlfriends, and I think they have a child together. Yeah, she's got 2 kids. One with Dr. Dre and one with that guy Suge Knight. And when she did this special that came on Lifetime, talking about how he had abused her and all that stuff. Okay, not I said the cat. It was the Lady D that he punched. Oh, you said Natasha said D. Barnes was viciously attacked and held down in a bathroom stall. Wow. That is so horrible. Bet Winch said, yes, she was in an abusive struggle love relationship with him for years. Yeah, she stayed with him for a long time. She should have left that much earlier. She's still a nice looking woman, but, when she was younger, she could have moved on, probably had her career if she wanted it, in the music industry. Yes, Delphia, all child rapists should get the death penalty. And why that is not people's first thought when they hear these stories, I will never understand that. I will never understand how these people who are supposedly pro-black will hear a story about a black child being molested And their immediate response will be, well, this other guy got a slap on the wrist. I've stopped trying to understand their way of thinking a long time ago. Hyperfanatic, yes, the person would disappear, never to be seen again. Yep. If R. Kelly was around at that time, he would not still be walking around. But see, that's another one of those situations, though, where, remember how I was saying a few minutes ago how I think some of these parents, they know the deal, but they look the other way? You know, a lot of those parents in the R. Kelly situation need to go to jail too. But he should have been locked up. He should have been locked up. Everyone around him who enabled him also needs to be locked up. But that situation is a glaring example of the way that the collective of Black people views sexual violence towards Black girls. Everybody rushing to defend him. Stupid, idiotic woman, a Black woman, paid his bail. Like, what? And then her paying his bail almost caused problems for her mom's daycare business. Do you remember that? Because when people found out that the lady paid the bail, they thought that she owned the daycare business. And so people were like calling the business and making complaints and stuff like that. And come to find out, it was her mom's business. This is a Black woman who had no concern for the women who were underage girls at the time that they were violated. That whole situation is a glaring example of how Black people, men and women, at times aid sexual predators, defend them, help cover up their crimes. And if they get upset with anyone, they get upset with the actual victims. Yep, Bette Lynch, you gotta allow evil people to dig their own graves. Okay, Delphia. She said these people don't wear condoms. They let stupid men raw dog them and then cry that they've been used. Very true. Hyperfanatic, a lot of these mammies know, they know what's going on with their daughters and they don't care. I think, and some of that is just because a lot of Black women have no empathy for Black girls. And some of it, to me, is they hate the father, and so they pass that hatred on down to their daughters. Not I, said the cat. Wow, you said your friend's mom sold her for drugs at 12 years old. I'm telling you, a lot of these, absolutely. I believe it. I think it happens more than what's reported. Hyperfanatic, luckily my family is not like other Black women's families, as I have the love and support of my parents. My parents are solid. Like, I grew up in a very loving home. It's just that when you're part of a collective that's dysfunctional, then even if your personal home life is solid, unfortunately, it's like you can't be in the house all the time. So once you step outside of the house, and you're dealing with people in your neighborhood or in schools or even other family members, you can still be affected by the dysfunction, because it's not enough solid, stable, and loving families in the group to outweigh the problematic people and their dysfunction. Delphia, you said you think some of these women are pedos themselves. Those stories are out there too. Those stories are out there too of women who were molesting their girls with the boyfriends. You're right, Natasha. They talk negatively about Corrin Gaines, and she was very, 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 for men. She was very much a black woman who was pro-black male. But when she was shot and killed by the cops, those men sided with the cops. That's why it doesn't benefit. It's not beneficial to us as black women to defend black people as a collective. They'll watch you crash and burn and basically will sit there and laugh about it. Think about women like Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, and Coretta Scott King, and I believe also Malcolm X's wife. All of those women were poor and destitute when they died because the collective that they fought so hard for didn't do anything to make sure that they could provide for themselves in basic ways as they got older. If they were financially supported by anyone, it was other races of people who stepped in to support them. Hyperfanatic said Dr. Dre is a horrendous human being, and he seems very abusive towards women, especially towards black women. He kind of hides it now because he's not in the public eye as much, but he's been very hateful. Delphia said most rappers were. Biggie hit Kim, sure did. And Big Pun beat his wife. Biggie was very physically and emotionally abusive to Little Kim. So, but yet she has basically put her entire life on hold to mourn for him. I don't get that because he was very abusive to her. Bette Lynch said, like KSC said, black women have peptide addiction. I've been in situations where black men pretend and lied about wearing a condom, even though I provided one. I dropped them so fast, but many black women do not. You're right. And you have to think too, that's called stealthing when people do that. And in the situations that I've seen, I mean, this has just been on like news clips or whatever, but the situations I've seen where people do that, they are people who know that they have STDs. Because BBC, their network had a news special on it, and I think Vice News did as well. Yeah, that's very predatory. Very predatory. They're either trying to give you whatever disease they have, if they have one, or they're trying to get you pregnant. And in this day and age, having kids when you're not prepared to have them, it's like the guy will stealth you and then probably not do anything to help you with the kid if you end up with one and you end up going through with the pregnancy. Oh, okay. That's what facts means. I like that. F all that. Hyper fanatic. Yeah, rap music is very misogynistic. To the point where, like, there are black men that laugh at black women for listening to rap music. It was part of one of Chris Rock's comedy specials a long time ago, where he was talking about how it was crazy to him to see black women dancing to, what was that Little John song? Oh, man. I don't remember the name of it, but it was the one to the windows, to the walls. And, why he was like, why would a woman laugh about a man talking about degrading them, the part skeet skeet or whatever. And he was like, most black women will be like, he's not talking about me, and keep on dancing. I was like, dang. These people, they're getting to the point now where they will laugh at us right in our faces. That's very true, hyperfanatic. Too many, too much dysfunction, very low vibrational. Madison, you said, a grandfather, oh no, who molested his 5 daughters, sold one for sex to a friend for 50 cents in the 60s, and passed her around in a circle to his friends. The wife knew but was a child victim as well. Mm-hmm. See, it's just. That's heavy, man. Bet when she said, you wonder why Little Kim. Yep, we wonder why Little Kim is so messed up. I mean, yeah, Delphia, you said you can't help but feel bad for her. I mean, at this point, she's got to be almost 40 or right at 40. And she has had the access to resources that could have helped her. I'm saying you don't want to be that person that's stuck on someone that's abusing you. He married somebody else. I don't know, like, it's crazy. Right, hyperfanatic? And it's like, no, they're talking about all of us. Like, this is how they feel about Black women. Delphia, you said you hate hip hop. You have maybe 13 rap songs you like. The rest of your playlist is rock. Hyperfanatic said you feel Little Kim has low self-esteem. Yeah, I just wish she had someone around her that would have encouraged her to seek therapy when she was younger. Because Biggie's wife, his own wife, has moved on. She's been married, I think, 2 times since Biggie died. But Little Kim was the side chick, and she hasn't been able to move on. I'm like, come on, man. Come on. Yeah, he never claimed her because during the time he was supposedly dealing with her, at one point he was engaged to this rapper named Charlie Baltimore, like back in the 90s. And then, of course, he was with Faith. Although I think him and Faith were getting ready to get divorced at the time that he died. Yes, Natasha. A lot of Black people don't want to hear positive music. That's what I've come to realize. It's weird because people will know like all of the classics, from maybe the 60s and 70s. But it's like, man, if those were new artists today, no one would listen to them. But anyway, y'all, I am going to get off of here. I thought I was only going to be on here for 30 minutes, but I am glad that we were able to spend this time together talking. I enjoyed all of you who came into the chat. It's great seeing you and talking to you all. I'm going to try to do another live tomorrow at around 5 Eastern time. That topic is going to be me sharing my thoughts on womb policing and all these conversations that people are having about reproductive rights and abortion. And after tomorrow, let's see, tomorrow's Tuesday. I don't think I'm going to do a live on Wednesday unless something just comes to mind. But after tomorrow, I am going to try to do 1 or 2 more lives this week. So thank you all for being here to participate in the live conversation. And to anyone who catches the playback, thank you for watching the playback. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comment section and I will respond to you as soon as possible. You all have a wonderful day. All right? Bye.